game number 2, that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be betting on specific player props overs on made threes. Are there any of these players that we're discussing that had a poor shooting night in game 1 from the outside that you're going to be taking a look at Sunday night for their player props on made threes?
Yeah, I was on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to have at least 2 threes. I had him in a small fun parlay yesterday, and that did not hit. He only had 1. I see him shooting the ball a lot better. He had at least 3 threes in that every game in that Lakers series. And Michael Porter Jr. is another one, 2 of 11 from deep. He'll likely shoot a little bit better, and I think a lot of the attention will go towards him out on the perimeter in really defending him, which would open up KCP a little bit more, and maybe even Bruce Brown, someone like that. So I would look at those 3 players. I'm also looking at Michael Porter Jr. in this series to have a double-double. I took that yesterday. That was plus 410. He had a double-double in multiple games in the Lakers series too. So that's one I'm going to be looking at quite a bit in this series. Also kind of interesting, Jamal Murray to have a double-double yesterday, 13-1. He did in game 1, and now that's down to plus 550. So that's about split in half for Jamal Murray to have a double-double, which is quite interesting. I'm not sure I'm going to take that in game 2. But just kind of interesting to note how these lines are moving from game to game, and watch that throughout the series.
When it comes to, say, the top goal scorer market, Matthew Tkachuk is the favorite here at 5-1. Jack Eichel at plus 550. Jonathan Marchessault at plus 750. Someone that I'm certainly eyeing as far as this market is concerned. A, would you want to bet into this market? And B, do you see any value as far as who can finish with the most goals?
Yeah, Jonathan Marchessault for sure. That's somebody I would look at for top goal scorer and top point getter at the end of the series as well. I mean, he's had a 5-game point streak, 13 points in his last 8 games, and goals in 4 of his last 5. So he's definitely someone I would eyeball. He said plus 750 with the top goals. And like I said, I would look for him for top points as well. That's definitely a good betting option.
Alex, it sounds like you believe this could be a longer series. Strap on in. Are you betting over on games in the series? Are you looking at 6 or 7? It's almost they're basically co-favorites. So that's what the sports books are expecting. How about you?
Yeah, so I bet the series to end in 6 games, and I also took because I'm a little torn on, like I said, who wins game 1. So I took positions on both Vegas to win game 1 and Vegas to win the series at plus 145, and Florida to win game 1 but Vegas to come back and win the series at plus 400. I figured that even if Vegas loses game 1, their series price adjusted will not be plus 400 right away. So I would have that kind of locked in pocket. But I think 6 games is kind of the sweet spot. So if you go VGK to win it in 6 or a series to go 6 games, I think that's a good bet.
One of the teams that a lot of us are tailing, not just those of us here on the show, but I think across national punditry, is the Florida Gators. And perhaps the biggest reason why I like Florida, aside from the fact that they are 16th in America in WRC plus at 125, and not just because they hit a ton of dingers, but they have arguably the easiest schedule among all of the host teams. Their regional is against Florida A&M, Texas Tech, and UConn. I don't really trust any of them to make this interesting. And then the other side of the super regional is the Columbia-South Carolina group, with South Carolina 15 seed overall, Central Connecticut, NC State. Campbell is a scary team just because, you look at some of their advanced metrics. They are just outstanding. Second in America in WOBA and WRC Plus, top 50 in Sierra are the Camels. You do have to make some strength of schedule adjustments for Campbell. But to me, that's the only team that I'm extra nervous about as far as that super regional is concerned. But the path for Florida is why I'm loving the Gators here, Joe.
Everybody looking for a long shot to make a run. Do you target the region, the super regionals down the board a little bit? because we were half joking, but since the name was brought up, we were talking about Indiana the other day, a 41-18 team, and they're in the Kentucky one, and overall they're the 12th, right? And we brought up Iowa at one point, and they're in with Indiana State as the 14th national seed. Do you look at that bottom half and try to look at 3s and 4s there where you can find some value where they would get out of those super regionals?
I think Indiana's kind of frisky. I think they could be kind of interesting. That they were a team that I was kind of looking at, and I know I missed it the other day, but they were a team that I was like, Indiana could be frisky here. And Kentucky has been good, and they've had stretches where they've looked great, but I think they're super beatable. And then you have to beat LSU, and that's tough. But if LSU, something weird happens, and they lose to like an Oregon State or something, and something weird happens there,
Go Beavers.
Like, I mean, this is not going to be chalk across the board. Something weird is going to happen somewhere. Things would have to go right. But Indiana is a team that's has a lot of veterans. They brought in a lot of transfers. It took a lot for things to come together because they had a lot of turnover over the winter and to get the season started. But I think they're a team that could be kind of risky. I kind of like Indiana. I'm going to look for opportunities to play them on an individual game basis too.
So Paul was getting sick of coming up with all of these topics for Nickel or Dime, and then we never do them. So for about 3 months, he would not change them. He's like, what the hell? Why am I going to change it? Why am I going to put in all this extra work? You guys aren't going to do the damn thing anyways. He had will Kyle Lowry be the MVP for 3 months on Nickel or Dime, which was never asked or answered. So now he brings back Kyle Lowry as our nickel option this year for Finals MVP.
I think it started. The question started like mid-May, and it was still there by the end of July. It was crazy.
He had a thing for Kyle Lowry or something. Like he loved the
Bryant,
idea.
Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, he's got a list
Big
of
Paul
guys.
Espen. Yeah.
Who's
the
his
Paul
pirate?
Espen possible.
Some heavy
who's his
hitters
pirate guy
here.
he loves?
Cabrian Hayes.
Loves Brian Hayes. He thinks weird random
Tigala.
players.
He loves Tigala.
He's a big Thigala guy too. Yeah, that's true.
Who was? The
Hey guys,
Grio.
Kim is going to be in our nickel or dime.
I brought up how he always bets on Grio. He's like, no, I don't. That was the first time. I'm like, all right. I always hear you say
I don't know.
Grio.
I don't know if he always bets Grio. He does often though. The Paul Aspen posse though is definitely Kyle Lowry, Cabrian Hayes, Sahith Takala, and Nito.
What a group!
What a group that is.
Instead of a list of losers, should we just put together the Paul Aspen conglomerate?
Yes.
Paul Aspen has his own list of losers.
We absolutely should. And it starts with the entirety of the Carolina Panthers and Jacksonville Jaguars.